6 feet tall, 200 pounds, born enslaved, delivered mail through blizzards and wolves at age 60, smoked cigars, drank whiskey in saloons, carried a .38 under her apron, and an entire Montana town closed its schools to celebrate her birthday every single year. Her name was Mary Fields, and they called her the freest soul to ever draw a breath. Welcome to African Tales by JONA-LORE, where we celebrate Black excellence and uncover stories they buried in history books. This Black History Month, we're honoring a woman who lived on her own terms, shattered every expectation, and became an American legend in the process. If you're ready to meet the most remarkable woman you've never heard of, hit that subscribe button and buckle up, because Mary Fields didn't just break barriers. She kicked them down, laughed, and then kept moving. Around 1832 in Hickman County, Tennessee, a baby girl was born into bondage. Her name was Mary. She would never know her exact birthday. Slavery doesn't keep records of enslaved people's celebrations. But what we do know is documented in the records of Hickman County, and later verified by author Miantae Metcalf McConnell, whose decade-long research in 2006 enabled the United States Postal Service Archives to officially recognize Mary Fields as the first African-American woman star route mail carrier in United States history. Mary spent 33 years in slavery, 33 years being owned by another human being, working fields under the Tennessee sun, living without freedom, without rights, without the ability to determine her own destiny. We don't have detailed records of those years. Enslavers didn't document the humanity of the people they enslaved, but we know she survived. And when the Civil War ended and the Emancipation Proclamation became law in 1863, Mary Fields walked into freedom. According to the National Postal Museum, after emancipation, Mary found work as a chambermaid aboard the Robert E. Lee, a Mississippi River steamboat. She was on that very ship during the legendary 1870 boat race against the Natchez, one of the most famous steamboat races in American history. For the rest of her life, Mary loved telling stories about that race, about how the crew threw cargo overboard, barrels of ham and bacon, just to lighten the boat and gain speed. The Robert E. Lee won, setting records, and Mary witnessed it all. But freedom meant more than just witnessing history. It meant writing her own. By the late 1870s, according to research documented in Encyclopedia Britannica, Mary had made her way to Toledo, Ohio, where she began working at the Ursuline Convent of the Sacred Heart as a housekeeper and groundskeeper. Here's where her story takes a beautiful turn. At this convent, she reconnected with Mother Amadeus, a woman Mary had known during slavery, the daughter of the family that had enslaved her. After emancipation, that relationship transformed. Mother Amadeus became a nun, and Mary, now free, chose to continue working alongside her, not as property, but as a trusted friend and employee. And Mary wasn't your typical convent worker. According to historical records verified by the Smithsonian National Postal Museum, Mary stood approximately 6 feet tall and weighed about 200 pounds. She was physically powerful and capable of what 19th century society called men's work. She hauled freight. She repaired buildings. She tended gardens. She managed chickens. She fixed anything that broke. The nuns relied on her strength, her skill, and her independence. In 1885, Mary's life changed forever. A telegram arrived in Toledo with devastating news. Mother Amadeus, now stationed at St. Peter's Mission in Montana, a school for Native American girls, was dying of pneumonia. Mary didn't hesitate. According to Miantae Metcalf McConnell's research documented in her book, Deliverance Mary Fields, Mary boarded a train that very night. 3 days later, she arrived in Helena, Montana, facing 2 more days of travel to reach her friend. Mother Amadeus survived, and Mary stayed. For the next decade, Mary worked at St. Peter's Mission west of Cascade, Montana. She became the forewoman, managing multiple responsibilities. According to the Montana Cowboy Hall of Fame records, she hauled freight, grew vegetables, tended over 400 chickens, did all the laundry, repaired buildings, and ferried supplies from nearby towns to the mission. The Native Americans at the mission called her White Crow because, as they said, she acted like a white person but had black skin. It was their way of recognizing that Mary refused to be limited by anyone's expectations of what a black woman should or shouldn't do. But here's the thing about Mary Fields. She didn't fit the mold of convent life. She spoke her mind. She cussed. She drank whiskey in saloons with men. She smoked cigars. She wore men's clothing when it suited her. The nuns loved her and tried to get her to tone it down. But Mary was Mary. In 1894, according to Wikipedia's verified documentation, everything came to a head. There was a gunfight. Reports vary on exactly what happened. Some say it was over wages, others say it was about a male subordinate who didn't want to take orders from a black woman. Either way, Mary and this man drew guns on each other. The Bishop of Montana got word and ordered the convent to dismiss her immediately. Mary Fields was 62 years old, suddenly without a job, in the middle of Montana Territory. So what did she do? She opened a restaurant in the nearby town of Cascade. She cooked. She served food. And here's what tells you everything about Mary's heart. According to records maintained by the Charles M. Russell Museum, her restaurant failed within 10 months. Why? Because Mary fed anyone who couldn't pay, for free. She couldn't turn away hungry people, even if it meant going bankrupt herself. But Mary Fields wasn't done making history. In 1895, at 60 years old, according to documentation provided to the U.S. Postal Service, Mary learned about a star route contract available from the U.S. Post Office Department. Star routes were independent contractor positions. You had to provide your own transportation, protect the mail, and deliver it no matter what the weather or terrain threw at you. These routes were considered some of the toughest, most dangerous jobs in the American West. The route ran 34 miles round trip between Cascade and St. Peter's Mission, through rocky bird-tail terrain, and across unpredictable weather, through territory with wolves, bandits, and thieves. The selection process? You had to prove you could hitch a 6-horse team faster than anyone else applying. Mary Fields hitched that team faster than any man who showed up. She won the contract. And on that day, Mary Fields became the first African-American woman, and only the second woman of any race, to hold a star route mail carrier contract in United States history. Let me paint this picture for you. A 60-year-old black woman, born into slavery, now driving a horse-drawn wagon through the Montana wilderness, carrying the United States mail. She wore long skirts and men's coats. Under her apron, she carried a Smith & Wesson .38 revolver. She drove her team with precision. Her favorite mule was named Moses, a name that, knowing Mary's history and sense of self, probably wasn't an accident. According to the National Park Service historical documentation, Mary never missed a single day of mail delivery. Not one. When blizzards made the snow too deep for her horses, she strapped on snowshoes, threw the mail sacks over her shoulders, and walked, sometimes up to 10 miles. When wolves surrounded her wagon, she fought them off all night long. When her wagon overturned in a storm, she stayed awake until dawn, walking back and forth to keep from freezing to death. The Great Falls Examiner later noted in her obituary that she broke more noses than any other woman in central Montana. Because Mary Fields didn't run from confrontation. If someone harassed her because of her race or her gender, and many tried, she was happy to educate them with her fists. There was a standing bet at the local saloon, $5 and a glass of whiskey, that Mary could knock out any cowboy in Cascade with a single punch. She collected that money regularly. Now, Montana passed a law during this time forbidding women from entering saloons. But the mayor of Cascade granted Mary Fields a personal exemption. Because Mary was Mary, and everyone knew you couldn't tell Mary Fields where she could or couldn't go. But here's what makes Mary's story truly beautiful. Despite her tough exterior, despite the cigar smoking and whiskey drinking and fist-fighting reputation, Mary Fields had one of the biggest hearts in Montana. She loved children. According to records from multiple historians, including Leslie Budewitz's research published on blackpast.org, Mary babysat for families throughout Cascade. She charged $1.50 a day, a fair rate for the time, and the children adored her. She spent her own money buying treats for them. She planted flowers in her garden and created beautiful bouquets. She gave corsages to the Cascade baseball team before every game, her way of supporting her town and bringing beauty into people's lives. The town loved her right back. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, and verified by multiple historical sources, Cascade, Montana closed its schools every year on March 15th, the date Mary chose as her birthday since she never knew the actual day. The entire town celebrated Mary Fields' birthday as a community holiday. Think about that. A black woman, a former slave, in the American West of the 1890s, honored by her entire community with a day off from school. The Mary retired from the Postal Service in 1903 at age 71. She'd served 2 4-year contracts, 8 years total, delivering mail without fail through some of the harshest conditions imaginable. She opened a laundry service, kept her garden, and continued babysitting the children of Cascade. In 1912, according to historical records, Mary's home caught fire and was badly damaged. The community immediately organized. Volunteers rebuilt her house. Because that's what you do for someone who's been there for everyone else. On December 5, 1914, at age 82, Mary Fields died at Columbus Hospital in Great Falls, Montana. 2 young boys had found her lying in a snow-covered field at the edge of town. Her funeral service was held at the Pastime Theater, the largest building in Cascade, because the entire town wanted to say goodbye. She was buried in Hillside Cemetery in Cascade, overlooking the mountain trail that led to St. Peter's Mission. The path she'd traveled for years, delivering mail, connecting people, serving her community. Her tombstone reads simply, Mary Fields, 1832 to 1914. Now, here's something remarkable. Among the people who remembered Mary Fields was a little boy who used to see her around town. His family lived nearby. He watched this towering, confident black woman who seemed to fear nothing and answer to no one. That boy grew up to become one of Hollywood's biggest stars, Gary Cooper. In 1959, 45 years after Mary's death, at the height of his fame, Gary Cooper wrote an article for Ebony magazine about the woman who had inspired him as a child. He wrote these words that have become Mary Fields' most famous legacy. Born a slave somewhere in Tennessee, Mary lived to become one of the freest souls ever to draw a breath. Or a 38. The freest soul to ever draw a breath. Think about what that means. Mary Fields was born as property, as a thing to be bought and sold. She lived 33 years without rights, without freedom, without the ability to make choices about her own life. And then, when freedom came, She didn't just survive, she thrived. She worked on steamboats and in convents. She traveled from Tennessee to Ohio to Montana. She opened businesses. She fought when necessary. She loved generously. She became the first Black woman to carry the U.S. mail. She earned the respect and love of an entire town. She lived exactly as she chose to live. Nobody told Mary Fields who she had to be. Nobody limited Mary Fields' possibilities. And when society said Black women couldn't do certain things, when they said women, period, couldn't do certain things, Mary Fields said, "Watch me," and did it anyway. This is the legacy we celebrate during Black History Month. Not just the suffering, though we honor that too, but the triumph, the resilience, the absolute refusal to be anything less than fully human, fully free, fully alive. Mary Fields represents something that our ancestors knew deep in their bones. Freedom isn't just the absence of chains. Freedom is living life on your own terms. Freedom is defining yourself instead of letting society define you. And freedom is being so undeniably yourself that even those who want to limit you have to step back and say, "That woman is something else." Before we close, I want you to think about something. Mary Fields was 60 years old when she got her historic mail route. 60. In an era when 60 was considered ancient, when most people that age were settling into retirement or decline, Mary Fields was just getting started on the adventure that would make her a legend. She didn't let age stop her. She didn't let race stop her. She didn't let gender stop her. She didn't let anyone's expectations stop her. She saw an opportunity, hitched that team faster than anyone else, and rode into history. So here's my question for you, and I want thoughtful responses in the comments. What limitations have you accepted in your life that maybe aren't as real as you think they are? What would living like Mary Fields mean for you today? And for my viewers who aren't Black, what can we all learn from a woman who refused to be defined by what society said she could or couldn't be? Drop your reflections below. This is Black History Month, the 100th anniversary of when we started officially celebrating our heritage. And Mary Fields' story shows us that Black history isn't just struggle. It's triumph. It's excellence. It's living so fully and freely that even Hollywood stars write about you decades later. Share this video with someone who needs to know about Mary Fields. Hit that like button to spread her legacy. Subscribe to African Tales by JONA-LORE, because we're bringing you these stories every single week. Stories that inspire, educate, and remind us of the giants whose shoulders we stand on. Mary Fields lived 82 years. She was enslaved for 33 of them, but she spent nearly 50 years free. And she spent those years being exactly who she was, unapologetically, courageously, and completely. Born a slave, died a legend. That's Stagecoach Mary Fields. Never forget her name. Stay blessed.